What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Kingdom Society. I'm Jake Ballentine with Chuck Schofield, and today we are talking about Space Mountain. Yes, that's right. We're talking about Space Mountain. We're talking about the Behind the Attraction episode on Space Mountain on Disney Plus. Chuck, before we get into the episode, what's good this week?
Yeah, we need to keep up our fun tradition of riffing on some of the other content that we've consumed in the past or since the last time we recorded. I've consumed several things that I want to mention. I know at the beginning we said, "Oh, let's just each do one," and then it's funny, like the last Tower of Terror episode. Uh, we riffed on stuff for 40 minutes before we even got into the episode, and it ended up being as long as the Star Wars one. So we'll see what we do today. Um, uh, there are several ones that I wanted to plug. One was a fantastic visual aid that is a fantastic supplement, and this I want to do more often on this show. I would love for the Creative Kingdom Society to become sort of a hub that doesn't just have an I don't know I don't know what the right word is, but like intergroup conversation with other content creators, but also one where we show how they could supplement each other or complement each other. And when I saw this post on that Instagram that you told me about, that I didn't know about, that you told me about, Foley
Yeah.
or Waltz Folly, um, they had a fantastic post with five different color photos of the fantastic landscape architect Ruth Shellhorn and with Walt Disney at the
Yes.
creation of Disneyland. And I thought, man, this is a fantastic visual aid to supplement those three great Disney History Institute podcast episodes about her
Yes.
and the Evans brothers. Was that their last name? The
I
guys
think
that
so.
made the Jungle Cruise. We talked about them in the Jungle Cruise episode, and her and them. So and in our first episode, you introduced me to this Instagram
Yeah.
page, and I just love seeing how it's all kind of connected.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fun thing to plug. And
Real quick, that guy he has the most amazing photos that he finds.
yeah, some of
Absolutely
them I'd seen
incredible.
before, but others like are totally new and awesome, and I thought I would have, but like it's a fun page to follow. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But then, speaking of Disney History Institute, he had another fantastic episode in his series on the Book of Hench. John Hench comes up in this Space Mountain episode,
Yes.
which in fantastic ways. But John Hench, the Book of Hench, the last, I think this was part 14, parts 12 and 13 were, I plugged those last time about Epcot. This one was about, Epcot and Mineral King, and all the projects that Walt was trying to do at the end of his life. And there was the first 3 minutes of this episode I listened to three times because he uh, the the summary of the episode is Walt had a lot of spinning plates there at the end of his life,
Yes.
and you've got to ask like how much did that affect him and his health,
Mm,
and then how much did him and his health affect these or motivate, sort of why he wanted to be doing so many things at that time, or like you could tell he was like thinking like legacy leaving, sort of like what's going to be my mark on the world, what's
yeah.
going to be my answer to how people accused me of making escapist things to escape the world. If I was so good and creative, why didn't I make something to make the world a better place? and what sort of legacy. But the first 2-3 minutes of this episode, he talks about how Walt went to the hospital. I had never heard this connection before about his health. He'd gone to the hospital for his back, and everyone knew he was limping or had back stuff from the old polio injury or whatever. And his doctors wanted to do a chest x-ray. And he said, "Nah, we don't need to do that because we know it's my old polo injury."
Mm.
But had they done that chest x-ray, they would have caught his cancer sooner, and he may not have died.
Wow.
Like, it was just like, hey, you could get this, it's not necessary. You could, like, it's not like he like made a bad decision or a irresponsible decision. It was an option, I guess, we could go get this extra just in case, but it's not, like, now I'll opt not to. I had never thought, like, what if they had caught it sooner and he didn't die?
Yeah.
What would have come of Mineral King? What would have come of Disneyland? What would
Become an Epcot.
exactly? Yeah. What would have come of the art, the art school that he wanted to do?
Yeah.
What would it, and
What would have come of that ski resort that he was
the
putting
Mineral
together?
King? Yeah.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a really good episode about that.
And a
But,
part of me wonders, whenever I hear things like that, though, a part of me wonders if him saying no, no, no. Part of me wonders if he already was aware, if he already knew. He had to know that he had to know that he wasn't healthy, because there was I don't remember who it was. There was an actor. I think it was the actor. I don't know his name, but he plays the main character in the movie Blackbeards Ghost. Have you seen it? Do you know that movie?
just by name.
Oh, that's what, like, I'm like, a lot of the live action Disney movies of the 60s don't really hold up. I mean, I understand what they were at the time, but a lot of them just don't, in my opinion, really hold up. But Blackbeard's Ghost is awesome. That movie is so
I
good.
think you and your brother have told me that before, and I still haven't gotten around to
Oh
it.
yeah, well, it's on Disney Plus.
What did it bring it back to this?
So he said that actor, I don't remember his name, but I believe it was him. It was in the How to Be Like Walt book.
Right.
He talked about how he knew when Walt was on set, because Walt would kind of stay back and didn't want to interfere. But he said, I knew when Walt was on set because I could hear Walt's cough.
Oh yeah.
And he was like referencing Walt's cough as like, it was just an attribute of him. Not that he had a cough. I mean, if you have a cough for that people recognize you by, that means you have a problem. And I read that book. One of the times I read it was during a time that I had pneumonia, and then pneumonia lasted forever, and I had a cough for like, it was probably, that cough lasted for like 4 months. Like it just kept going and going and going. And people started to recognize me for like, oh, Jake's here, because they could hear my cough, because it was a very distinct cough. And the point is I'm not saying he knew he had cancer, but he had to know he wasn't healthy. And going back to the idea of speeding up the process, it was almost like earlier on, he said, okay, I'm going to do this project and I'm going to focus on it and do this. And then I'm going to do the next thing. And then maybe get that to the point to where I can pass it off to other people, and then do the next thing, and then do the next thing, where at the end of his life, he was just like, I'm going to do everything. Everything I want to do, I'm going to do. Almost like he knew, maybe he didn't know about cancer, but maybe he knew
there was a line. There was a line in there, to your point about coughing, where he talked about how Marty Sklar wrote the script for the Epcot film, and they wrote it so that they could record it in between coughing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, but I think the moral of the story and why I would even want to bring it up is that if there's anything to learn from that, get yourself diagnosed. Like diagnostic
Go to the
tests
doctor.
are good. You're like, don't put it off. Like be
Yeah.
proactive. Why wait? You know, like better to know sooner than later, you know, like
Always. Yeah.
always. Yeah. Take care of yourself, you know. Anyway, that will always plug Todd James Pierce and his beautiful DHI podcast, and Instagram and Facebook and all that. And he was in this episode for a second.
Yep.
But there's one other thing I wanted to plug, but you might be wanting to plug it. I don't
I
know.
have
We
something
didn't. We
else I
didn't.
wanted to plug. I had
Uh,
something else, so you can talk about it.
are you sure? Another podcast?
No, it's a YouTube video.
Okay, so yeah, so the other one I had to plug was I forgot if you brought them up or I think you brought them
I
up.
think I brought them up.
Episode
Yeah.
1,
Yep.
The Backside of Water, just came out with their part 3 of their Tomorrowland series, which is kind of connected to this, kind of Space Mountain episode. Part 2 was back in February. I mean, 1 was put back in February. Part 2 was in July. Part 3 just came out. So it was fantastic. They're at least going to do a part 4. But homeboy Skipper, what's his name?
For Freddy.
Skipper Freddy.
Yeah.
He took us on a visual, like, you know how they usually have a script they're going off of?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And that's a cool niche they have. But you could tell he went off script, and he just gave this like off the cuff tour to the other two who had never been on the People Mover before.
Oh.
And he just speaks you through it.
Had never
So-
been on the People Mover in Disneyland, or had never
Right,
been
right,
at Disney World?
Disneyland.
Yeah.
Disneyland. And he just spoke them through it and speaks, the audience through it.
Yeah.
And I saw every foot of track when he
That's
was
awesome.
describing it.
I have very vague memories of it, because what year did it close? Do you know?
95.
Okay, so I was 9 or 10 years old. I mean, I turned 10 at the end of that year, so I do remember it, but very vaguely.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like same thing with the I forgot her name on there. She was that young too, and she remembered things just because of how he described it, because he described it so
yeah,
well.
would have come back.
Yeah, and it was off the cuff, and like I had to plug that because no one's a bigger fan of the People Mover than I am.
Yeah.
The original one, right? And anyway, the great episode for Backside of Water. Yeah. Anyway, what
they chose? I wonder why they chose different vehicles for the one in Florida.
I could go down that tangent forever. I don't need to, I could tell you all about that, but
Okay, we'll talk
but
about that another
we'll
time.
definitely, well, probably, I'm hoping, I haven't watched it yet. I'm hoping that there's some sort of plug for the People Mover in the monorail, trains, and whatever episode.
Yes, there is. I already
Okay.
watched that episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll riff on it then.
Okay, so we'll talk about it then. One main thing that I want to plug, but I do want to say, when you brought up Skipper Freddy, it's funny because he just this past week he posted a picture of another skipper, an active skipper today for his birthday, and said, "Happy birthday, Kip!" And he said, "You're one of the best to ever do it." And what's so funny about that is 2 weeks ago, when Caitlin and I were at Disneyland, we had this skipper, and afterwards, both me and Caitlin were like, that was like the best Jungle Cruise experience we've ever had. Both of us thought
Wow.
that. We were legitimately laughing, not laughing ironically, and not laughing at, like, really, really good stuff. Like, he was great. And then a week later, sometime in the last week, he makes this post, and I'm like, hey, that's that guy. That's the guy that we had. He's not lying.
Cool.
He's really good. So that was cool. But then what I wanted to plug, Mickey Views, man, I always want to plug Braden for the work that he does, but he did an episode on everything moving to Florida. He did an episode on everything moving to Florida. Did you watch that episode?
Yeah.
I think we could go on about pros and cons and corporate decisions and those kind of things there, but I more just wanted to shout out what quality journalism that was. I mean, it was done so well.
Did you see his train episode
I don't know.
on the high-speed rail
I don't think
in
so.
Florida? Oh, that one, if this one impressed you, the other one deserves an Emmy.
Really?
Yeah, like it was, and he said somewhere that he got a lot of traffic, like unusually more, and not from the same normal people that he usually does, because it was, it was about the high-speed rail that was supposed to connect the airport to
Oh, I
Disney Springs.
did see it. Yeah, I did
Yeah,
see
yeah.
that.
That one was thoroughly well researched and documented. This
Yeah.
one was another fantastic piece of journalism. Like, good
Yeah, it
on
was
him.
done. It was done so well, but also like I knew that was happening, but I learned so much more about it
Yeah,
from that. It was
yeah.
also interesting hearing the perspective of, to me, in my mind, they're moving away, and to him, in his mind, they were
He's
moving to him.
excited. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
was kind of like, oh, we're excited to see what will happen when the Imagineers are closer. And I'm like, wow, the Imagineers are going further. That was
That's
interesting.
such a weird thought, though. Like, it doesn't matter where they are.
I don't
Like,
think so.
like this is all about like which place is a friendlier tax haven for the corporation. Like, it's not about like, oh, if they're closer here, we'll get something more magic. Really? Like, I don't. I think the significance of their location is not just difficult to measure, but statistically insignificant. Like, I don't know what to make of that.
I agree with that. I don't think that there is much of a difference between where they're at, because they're doing their work inside of the place and inside of their studio, their set, in their
In
head.
their
Yeah.
head.
But
Yeah, like,
at the same time, it is interesting. I do my heart goes out to those people who have worked for them for 20 and 30 years and really just don't want to move and had to choose between their home and all of that. And that's
that's
a, that's a rough place to be in. But it will be interesting to see, like, that sure seems like an impressive campus that they're at, an impressive place that they're at. And anyway, just the video was awesome. Really cool. Mickey Views. Check it out. Everything that guy does is great.
Now I want to win the lotto, or have this channel blow up and we get millions of patrons on Patreon, or, and then we can move into the old Imagineering building in Glendale.
Ah, that would be really interesting. What
You got to
is
put it out there,
going
man. You just got to put it out there into the universe, and then it'll
What
come
is
back.
going there right now? I want to
Yeah.
know what is it? What's going there?
I would love to be in that magical space, man.
Yeah,
It's sad
watch.
to
It's
leave
gonna
that
be.
sort of history.
It's gonna be like a real estate office or something.
Yeah,
Like an insurance
dentist.
company's gonna
like,
a dentist.
like. Anyway, should we jump into the
yeah, let's
space?
jump into it. So that's what I checked out this week. Everyone in the comments, I would love to hear what you've been watching, what you've been consuming. Let us know. So let's jump into the Space Mountain episode. Always a fun, quirky open. I love just the jokes and the wittiness of it. But I like the beginning of this episode, how they're showing the space age, they're showing the takeoff, they're showing all of that. That inspired this. And I remember watching some things about, I don't even remember where it was, but watching some things about Walt Disney and the space age. Maybe it even was a DHI episode, or listening to it, I'm not sure. But the idea of how many young future scientists and engineers Walt Disney inspired by his weekly episodes, talking about the future and talking about space travel and those kind of things. And it's just interesting how there's kind of a cyclical and almost chicken and egg kind of thing. Sometimes you wonder, now did Walt Disney predict anything, or did those young minds make things that were similar to what Walt Disney was talking about. But
Yeah.
I just thought that was cool, just talking about, showing space at the beginning and showing
Yeah.
real space travel and what inspired all this stuff and some of the things that
Man,
Walt was obsessed with.
I brought a visual aid. You could probably see it behind me. I like to use the visual aids, right? But now
Yeah.
you make me wish I had gotten out my Volt set of the Tomorrowland episodes. It's a real nice, like in a tin sort of
Oh, yeah,
set
yeah, yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
those episodes you're talking about that probably did influence a lot of people that went into all these things related to space. And
Yes.
it is fascinating to ask that question about influence, right? And what influenced what, and how do you even measure, and how all art is derivative, and all, builds upon and borrows and is influenced by, and that's part of what this Creative Kingdom Society even likes to riff on, is like exploring that question of who influences who, and how, and why, and why does
Yeah.
that influence bring you joy, and like, no, and where I thought you were going with that is, I think there was a couple DHI episodes about how Walt wanted to make Tomorrowland, like, even though this episode gets into how Tomorrow was what John Hench calls it curious, or Herb
Yeah.
Ryman called it
I think he said
confusing, or
unsure from the beginning is what he said, something like
yeah,
that.
and how they were confident about all the other lands, but this one was a moving target constantly. But I thought you were going to bring up that there was a couple of those episodes, and maybe it was the same episodes that you were referring to, where he talked about how he wanted to make the optimistic vision of the future,
Mm,
to relieve people's tensions and anxieties about entering into the atomic age.
mm,
Right? And that was the Tomorrowland, or that's what motivated a lot of the Tomorrowland of 55, of 59, of 67 specifically. And then I guess that evolved into space exploration, rocket to the moon, rocket mission to Mars, and then let's put you on a rocket that's really flying around in outer space. It was kind
yeah.
of, yeah.
Yeah. I get the feeling that Walt wanted, I mean, he really liked educational, hopeful future thing. Like I think that Walt made what he wanted, and he made what he wanted and what he was interested in. And then what people also wanted is what stuck. And I kind of get the feeling that, Walt,
That's an
I,
interesting way to put it.
yeah, I mean, cause I think that, like, cause even like you look at Epcot, the original concept of Epcot, it just wasn't possible without the visionary of Walt Disney. And what did they do instead? Well, it started out with this idea of like, well, what if we did a showcase of the world, and we did a permanent World's Fair and that kind of thing. But I think that from the beginning, they were kind of making fun of it in this episode, the Hall of Chemistry, the bathroom of the future, and I think that they highlighted the things that were quirky. I'm guessing that interview of Marty Sklar from whenever it was, he probably talked about lots of things, but those are the quirky and fun things, and that's the narrative that they're going with. But it was a like when you go to the county fair and you go in and see all the cool, like, new things and new gadgets. I think he was just really into that kind of stuff, and I don't know. I wonder if he was disappointed that other people weren't as into it as he was.
Well, I don't remember if it was in this episode or in the DHI episode, or this is what happens when you consume so much content, they all bleed together.
Yeah.
But I think it was on the Backside of Water episode in discussion of the extinct Tomorrowland attractions. I think it was, yeah, it was on there. Now I remember. Sorry, thank you. It was, he was riffing on how when we look back at these things, we think they're kitschy and cute and quirky and funny. But at the time, they were legit new, cool, interesting, like cutting edge, like aluminum was cutting edge.
Yeah.
Polyester and the chemistry was cutting edge. Even the bathroom of the future was cutting edge. The house, the Monsanto house of the future with everything was plastic was cutting edge. Um, 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 it On the Backside of Water episode, they talk about how there used to be the Circle Vision show. The America show was sponsored by Bell and then AT&T or something. And
Yeah.
then so like communication phones were cutting edge.
Yeah.
They talk about, do you remember the booth that you used to be able to walk in a glass room at the exit of the America movie? And you could go in and there was like payphone booths they were enclosed in glass, and they had a speakerphone, and it was like
I
everyone's
don't.
first experience with a flipping speakerphone, because like it
Wow.
was in like that was cutting edge.
Yeah.
Like, and then you got Interventions, which was
Yeah.
all cutting edge stuff when it came out. But then the problem the entire time with using what's new and cutting edge as an attraction is the constant upkeep. And that's
Yeah.
the challenge.
And that's why something like the World's Fair, or also just a county fair or state fair, kind of works, because it's just booths with stuff and you can move the stuff, but you put permanent things. While you were talking about that, I was thinking about, have you ever played with an Oculus?
Yeah.
Like, incredible. So cool. But that's the kind of stuff that was in, just a couple years ago, was like absolutely cutting edge, crazy. And it
I
still
remember
is.
when it was in Interventions in Florida. Like I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking, whoa, like that's incredible. And now it's in everyone's house,
Yeah.
you know,
And they're not
like,
even that expensive either. Like, they're
and,
not, I
and
mean,
they're not even that cool. Like,
I think they're pretty cool. My brother-in-law has one. He's 18 and I use it often
yeah.
because it's
No,
cool.
you know where I thought you were going to go with that is I'm hoping, and there's that whole black box attraction idea of like they could just make a black box and then put you like with projection mapping or with
Oh yeah.
virtual reality goggles,
Yeah.
they could put you on any old ride,
Oh,
like
amazing.
and that would be, and like so like these episodes of Backside
That's
of Water.
coming.
Like, yeah, but like the episodes of the Backside of Water, they're all pretending like they go on some machine where they ride through and see all of the extinct attractions of Tomorrowland. It's a cool bit, a cool skit they're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
But like that's going to be here. And the first sign of that we saw in one of the episodes about how uh you could walk around Star Wars land with the virtual reality now.
Yep, yep.
And then like the next evolution of that is like, okay, let me go to the park, let me sit in some little vehicle that moves around a dark room, and let me ride Journey into Imagination, please. Thank you.
Yes,
Taken.
yeah. Yeah,
Like,
why not?
like I
I
don't care if it's just all in my eyes. But let me do it. Right.
just think about, I remember the first time that I discovered high definition POV rides on YouTube, and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
what?
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
is like just like that. But what you're talking about, this is on its way. Like, you look at VR company, as I was reading about, is one VR company, and what they're planning on doing is making it so like, hey, do you want to see, like, who do you want to see? Do you want to go see the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl? And like, they're recreating those concerts
That's cool.
with VR, and you're in a crowd of people and you're experiencing this. Also, do you want to sit at the 50-yard line to watch the Super Bowl, like, live? But it being this live experience, but not only new things, but also recreating old things, you know, I think that's really cool.
And
So
and
here,
and it's not as if we're off on a tangent. per se, because there's already roller coasters, or not a roller coasters, or whatever you're going to call them on, with the,
Thrill rides.
if it's
This
rolled
is a
steel,
high-speed thrill ride.
yeah, tubular steel or not, right? But at like Magic Mountain and stuff, that you ride with VR goggles on. So it's only a matter of time for Disney, in some way, at some point in the near future. I wouldn't be surprised if you could ride Space Mountain with VR goggles. At some point, there's going to be some overlay that involves, for some holiday, there's going to be some overlay, and you're going to be able to ride this Space Mountain in Florida and California, wherever, with VR goggles on. And then it's going to evolve into, like, it's not just an overlay, it's all the time. And then it's good, you know what I mean? Because they're not going to tear this thing down. It's a park icon now. You can't tear it down, so you got to have it evolve, right? And change, which is the whole story of this whole show, right? So like, we're not even off topic.
No, not at all. Not at all. I thought it was interesting. They started talking about Matterhorn. And this is just an interesting thought. I felt like they were insinuating that Matterhorn is a part of Tomorrowland.
That's a fun one, but let's not forget the Matterhorn, the subs, and the monorail all opened as part of the new Tomorrowland of 1959.
Okay, because I always think about Matterhorn as a part of Fantasyland. Later, I kind of think about it in No Man's Land. I don't really think about it in any land. Ironically, it kind of is in between.
I think later it was moved to Fantasyland.
It was officially moved on the map.
Yeah. They just redrew the map. I don't remember when that happened, but yeah. I mean, let's not forget there used to be a Tomorrowland Autopia and a Fantasyland Autopia.
There also used to be a junior Autopia. There was way too many Autopias.
Yeah.
And there was also a water Autopia. So I don't know if it was called that, but there was a lot of vehicles you could drive.
Aquatopia is what in Japan. Yeah. That's actually in Japan. But the motorboats here were never called the motorboat Autopia. Yeah, just that idea that, in 1955 or 1959, not cars, but the highway was the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't
strange concept.
It's not cars that are the future, but it's the highway that's the future. Yeah. And now we just take it for granted, and yeah.
Well, like when you're talking to someone old when they refer to the highway as the bypass, because it's the one that bypasses the town, because it's not the old Route 66 or whatever that goes through the town. It's the one that bypasses everything.
Yeah.
They should make a movie about a town that kind of dried up because of the highway. You could call it Cars or something like that. So what if we lived in a world where it'd be called Space Voyage instead of Space Mountain?
I love that part of the story about that it was in the concept art, the desire to do it, the inability to do it. It was on the map that they sold as coming soon, right?
No, I have a Disneyland map, the Disneyland map on my wall. It's from the 60s, probably this. It was that one that was on the show. It says future space attraction.
Yeah.
Is what it says on the map, right where Space Mountain is.
And the idea of having 4 tracks, and one of them went outside the building and inside the building, and then that connection to Tron. I thought, why the heck are they plugging Tron in this episode? Like, I didn't see a connection, but they made that connection, which was maybe it was a freebie. Maybe that was a little bit of a stretch, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
But the other connection that I've never made before was that whole idea that the Matterhorn was the first, is it called tubular steel roller coaster? And then they thought, okay, well, we can't, we don't want to put a mountain with snow in Florida. So let's just take the monorail, the Matterhorn track,
Yeah.
and put it inside of this beautiful building that John Hench was part of designing that kind of looks like the Space Voyage one, and make it totally enclosed, no going outside. So it's pitch black. But that essentially it's the Matterhorn just inside.
Totally.
Like that's kind of mind blowing. And I knew that one in Florida was like choppy as heck, man. Just
Yep.
like the Matterhorn. Both of those kind of make me sick. Like, but then the one in California is smooth as butter. And like, I think my muscle memory just has the track memorized. Like, it doesn't matter if it's dark. Like, I know every whoop, 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 whoop,
Yeah,
whoop,
but
whoop.
it's not the bumpy like in Florida,
It's
because
smooth as
it
butter.
is like it is Matterhorn. And because I don't know where I heard about this, but I knew that the first time I went to it like 5 years ago, I knew that was the same thing. Because if not, I would have thought, how strange that we're getting in a toboggan like vehicle to go into outer space.
That's funny.
Because
That's
it
funny.
is, you sit in a row. There's
Yeah.
not side by side. You're sitting in a row, and I'm sure that just like Matterhorn, they've now, they now added the seat. But you remember how back in the days, like you would just share, you just sit in each other's laps on
Yeah.
that.
It sounds so unsafe now. But
It
like at the
does.
time it felt fine. They're like,
It
okay.
felt fine. Well, even like, I mean, even Splash Mountain didn't have backs. It was just one
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
row that you could
That's gnarly to even
squeeze
think
as
about.
many people as possible on. I don't know. Oh, sidetrack. I looked all over the internet today for where I could buy a tube from the old Tomorrowland track so I could use as a
Oh,
pin holder on
that would
it.
be so cool. Yeah.
I
Did
looked
you
all over, but I
any
couldn't
luck?
find it. I looked
Yeah, I
on
bet
eBay, I looked on Amazon, I just typed it into Google. I probably spent
I bet that's
20
very
20 minutes.
rare. Yeah, good on
Yeah,
him. What was
but I
his
thought that was
name? The
awesome.
guy that had it? I wanted to bring him up later anyway. Was that Owen Yoshiro? Was
I
that
think
him?
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounded right.
I think it was him. I apologize if anyone's watching and we say it the wrong guy, but I did want to bring him up because I love that idea of connecting all the theme park space rides into one theme park universe, kind of like the Society of Adventures and Explorers, or
Uh-huh.
Explorers and Adventurers, and how many theme park attractions are being connected to that backstory
Yeah.
or theme park universe. Do the same thing for the space rides, and how he made the Space Mountain look like a spaceport thing and like an
Yeah.
airport, and they had the Space Mountain probe ship, the X2 rocket from Mission Space, the Star Tours vehicles, and that brings me to my visual aid. I don't have any Space Mountain merch per se. I'm
Uh-huh.
wearing an R2D2 shirt. I'm a force for change, one of their charitable campaigns.
Well, I
But
mean, at one point it was a Star Wars ride.
yeah,
So
Hyperspace Mountain, yeah. But I do have this beautiful poster that I don't know how well I'm going to get that on there. Now you
oh,
just
it's
see the
great.
reflection of
See
the
the
screen.
reflection. You had a second ago, and I could see it really well, but that looks incredible.
But what I love about it isn't just that you can see Space Mountain, but it blends into like computer chip stuff like Tron. It's got the symbol of Tomorrowland, the movie. It's got the big building from Tomorrowland, the movie, but the centerpiece is obviously Space Mountain. But then it has like the rocket that's in Tomorrowland. It's got the People Mover. It's got the House of the People Mover, the House of the Future. It's got somewhere up there. It's got the Star Tours vehicle.
Mm.
It's got the kid with the jetpack from Tomorrowland. It's even got these blimps that kind of remind me of like the Golden Zephyr in California Adventure or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I just loved all the little Easter eggs on this piece of art that I got at a D23 Expo or something, and it reminded me of what he did with that piece of art that he had for Space Station 77.
Yeah, it's funny when that was behind because I could only see the top of it. I just had no clue. I mean, I had an idea and I was completely wrong because it's reflective.
What
I don't
was
know.
your idea?
I thought it was like a 10, box with like
Oh
something
yeah.
inside of it is what I was thinking. I was thinking it was like a box that was long and narrow, like a 10 one, like kind of like a lunchbox kind of thing, but long and narrow. I was thinking there's going to be some kind of toy collectible or something inside of it. But no, that's super cool. That's awesome. I love that.
And it totally reminded me of his art. Yeah.
Yeah. Super, super cool. It was interesting to hear them talking about how Waltz was already talking about this concept, and then they were talking about building it. And then once Florida came, it was kind of, let's do this there. Let's put everything on hold. It's just kind of interesting how the timeline all ended up working out and how many things have been 10 years in the making, 12 years, 15 years in the making. Like when we talked about Haunted Mansion, how it was like 13 years later, this thing, or whatever it was. I don't remember the year, but it was a long time that it opened. And it's just
And to your
interesting to see
point,
the timeline.
like I didn't realize that Legends were involved with this. I didn't realize that Herb Ryman was involved with this. I didn't realize that John Hench was involved with it. Shame on me. I mean, of course, I should have realized that, but I thought like the next generation down did Space Mountain. I never really
Yeah.
made the connection.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Another thing that this brings up is how there was obviously a change of, I don't know, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but it feels like there was a little bit of a change of culture during this because at the beginning, they didn't, I don't know if maybe it was just about snow, but I thought it was more about they didn't want to make a replica of something new. They were making replicas of things that people loved, things that people loved for a long time, but they didn't want to make a replica.
Rethemed. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that. And then later, like Tokyo, exact replica. And then you look at what they did with France, and then you have a whole different experience there.
Yeah, I think there was some corporate money saving, penny pinching sort of decisions there, but it was great that when Tony Baxter was put in charge of France and what's Tim Delaney, is that the other guy's name? Yeah. What the freedom they had to, they still had work within restricted budgets, but they really, Tony Baxter, the genius, really tried to solve the Tomorrowland problem with the whole visionaries and the history of the future. I love that idea. History of the future.
Yeah. And the other thing too is Discoveryland is also a lot of leftover things from Discovery Bay.
Yeah.
Really cool. And I have to say that I am disappointed that their Space Mountain is not what it was, because I would love to go on that ride, and it's different now. It's not.
I've heard that it's even better now.
Really?
Yeah. Because
wow, I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
I heard that 2.0 is better than 1.0. Like I don't remember the context. But yeah,
I heard they
right.
don't do like the journey to the center, like journey to the moon kind of thing, which I was just excited about that concept. Not because I was a huge fan of vintage film. It's because of the Smashing Pumpkins music video.
Oh yeah.
and that's why I think about that all the time.
But that's fascinating because that sounds like a stupid connection, but like back to that point you made earlier about like what influenced what and how all art is derivative and what are we are we making art about science or science about art?
Yeah.
And like it's all connected, man. That's a beautiful
Well,
thing.
and Billy Corgan said he dreamed as a child to be a Disney Imagineer.
And he's a huge pro wrestling fan. Hey, it's all
Well,
connected.
no, I feel like me and Billy Corgan should be buddies because he actually said that as a child, his dreams were to be a musician, involved in professional wrestling, a Disney Imagineer, and a professional baseball player. Those were his dreams as a child. I just feel like him and I have so much in common, but it's a one-sided relationship. He doesn't know me.
Hey, man, we got a one-sided relationship with all of our favorite content creators too, so it's all good.
That's all right. We'll be friends with them.
And speaking of what, we can't forget where we saw Todd James Pearson there. It's funny, like I love hearing from that guy, but the only quote they grabbed from him was something about how crowded the parking was. Like I thought that was random.
It was random.
Yeah.
But it must have just been that he stated something. Hey, where does Todd James Pierce get all of his information from?
He's a scholar, man.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like he's getting it from old newspapers. He's getting it from random books.
He's a real investigative reporter, historian type guy, man.
Well, I mean, he I don't know where. Do you know where he teaches? I mean, I know he's a college professor.
I have never looked that up actually, but now I'm curious. Yeah.
I feel like it might be Cal Poly. I think he might have said his Cal Poly might be.
If he's that close to me, we got to hang out.
I don't know if it's Cal Poly Pomona or Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, maybe it's the other one. Yeah.
I thought that he lived a little bit out of, because I remember him saying something about it being a little bit of a travel to get to the park. But yeah, that's a really interesting thing. What was cool too is them going into that being the first loop ride. And I knew that. Maybe once upon a time I knew this, but I had forgotten that it was the first onboard audio.
First catapult launch?
Yes. And, first catapult launch ever, or the first in Disney?
That I don't know. Yeah.
But
was it the first onboard audio ever anywhere?
Yeah. They said
that was the point. Ride. Yeah, that's right.
That was the first onboard. And the concept of the songwriter having to ride the ride over and over again to get the beats just right. I love that.
That's cool.
And like you go like, okay, at Disneyland, I love how they're those in the drops, how the music goes like right at the spots when it goes down. Like, I think it's really cool, but I love that idea. This is a little out of order, but I did think it was really interesting when they were talking about the song for, they're talking about France there, but then later they go back into the song for Space Mountain in California. And I forgot about the surf rock, like that whole era in like the late 90s. Remember how it was like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was some like completely different vision of the future. It was almost like this like 50s future thing. And they had all this space stuff and then the surf rock and all that kind of stuff was really cool. But then when they talked about the audio, my head was going, oh, interesting. Onboard audio. Well, once California Screamin' and then Incredicoaster, that ride would be nothing without the audio. And then when they mentioned that the new track was written by the same guy who did The Incredibles, that means that the two thrill rides at Disneyland Resort that have onboard audio have songs written by the same guy. I thought that was so interesting.
That's an interesting connection that they should have made too. Like they should have made
I'm surprised that they didn't say that.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, that's a cool connection because they almost said that. Like
they almost did, but they didn't.
It was like the next sentence.
Yeah, because after changing that to the Incredicoaster now, so both of them have same guy.
That's cool. That's a cool connection. See, that's how we can supplement them. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need us. They should put this on Disney Plus.
That's the point. Hey, maybe one day. No, oh my goodness, that would be interesting. Yeah. But anyway, My only last two notes here are about the very end, and I'm not meaning to rush to them. So like,
No.
you go ahead. What else you got? What else do you got? We've touched on everything else that I wanted to make sure to touch on, but
Another thing I wrote down was Neil Armstrong coming to the reopening.
oh, that was fascinating. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
I didn't realize that either.
Oh, you know what? That's a good. Um, do you remember in the 90s, same time period, late 90s?
Well, this is
Or
2005
early.
was when this one opened.
Oh, well, I'm going back.
Okay.
Uh, in the Backside of Water episode, they talked about the exhibit that used to be where those phones were that I talked about a minute ago. Between that exhibit and what's there now, which is the fast passes for Star Tours and Buzz Lightyear, but who knows what they're going to do with those now that there is no fast pass.
Yeah.
There in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a NASA exhibit there. Do you remember that?
I don't.
There was a NASA exhibit, and they had actual moon rocks from the moon.
Hmm.
And I remember walking by them and seeing them and like feeling like, oh, that's really cool. That like part of the moon is here in Disneyland. And Walt would have loved this. Walt would have loved this.
Yeah.
And then and I just remember that when you said Neil Armstrong, right?
Hmm.
Like I just made the connection, obviously. But I thought, oh, that I wish that Tomorrowland had some things like that now, you know.
Yeah, I do too. I'd love that because I mean it is something that is talked about on every Disney podcast. This comes up, and that is about how the Tomorrowland problem, the problem of Tomorrowland, everything changing all the time, all those kind of things. But like, when I was in Tomorrowland recently, I was thinking, I was like, there's not, now that they moved they got rid of all the Star Wars stuff that used to be going on there, with the characters walking in and out, with the Star Wars, the Jedi training school. There's not that much going on in Tomorrowland. And it would be great to have something happening in there more than just the rides, because the atmosphere, I love the music that's going on there. I love the music. I love the vibe. I love the lights and all that kind of stuff. But there's not that much going on to be entertained by staying in Tomorrowland. And I felt like there used to be more. And
Have
they
you
could just add some educational stuff. They could add some space, something. They could add exhibit. Maybe it's even an exhibit. Like, I don't care if it's sponsored by whatever. Like, they should have I mean, what about like having something like an exhibit that is about and sponsored by Virgin Galactic? How cool would that be to have, something like that, or some kind of exhibit?
That one
Something
seems like a slam dunk now that Joe
seems
Rohde's there and I forgot the guy's name, used to be the president of Disneyland. He's dang, someone will put it in the comments. But
mm,
there's another guy there too, that's way up there with him. I
mm.
forgot his title, but that one seems like the connection's already there. Why not?
Something like that would be perfect, or something like a something about Tesla, something about, I've heard this suggestion as well. Wouldn't it be cool if they completely redid Autopia with a new sponsor, and that sponsor being Tesla,
Of
and they're all
course.
electric vehicles? Like, how cool would that be?
I think I yeah, that's obviously cool, but whether it's Tesla or Google or whoever's going to pull this off, I want it to be, and I know this takes away from the whole fun of like driving, right? I get
Oh,
that what I'm about to
self-driving.
say. Yeah. Like if you're going to show the future and get the public used to it and get the public comfortable with it, what better way would there be? then
Totally.
yeah.
But I always thought that the reason why Autopia was in Tomorrowland was not because of cars being the future. I always thought it was because kids getting to drive because they would drive in the future. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I've heard that connection before. I've heard the highway connection before. Uh, and I think it was the Backside of Water episode. They talked about that old Mary Blair um, mosaic up above, on the Buzz Lightyear building, that had a bunch of children, and it looked kind of like Small World kind of thing. And it was something about the children or the future. Like,
yeah.
the future is the children. So to your point, like, yeah, like Tomorrowland has something to do with children.
Yeah. A couple questions, and then I want to hear what because now that I look at my notes, I have something at the end as well, and I wonder if it's the same thing. But before we go there, what do you think about the overlays they've done? So they have the regular one, and then you have Ghost Galaxy, and then the Hyperspace Mountain. What do you think about those? I know there's mixed reviews on it.
Overlays don't bother me because I know that there's a beginning and an end. And like, I remember when Ghost Galaxy came out the first time in Anaheim, I left right after work and went by myself to try it the first time. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I've gone to Disneyland by myself a dozen times in my life, and that was one of them, right? Like because it drew, like, it was that big of a draw.
Yeah.
Do I think
I love it. I love the Ghost Galaxy.
Well, do I think it was worth that? No.
Okay.
but is it cool if you're there? Yeah, it is. And the first time it was the coolest. The first time on Ghost Galaxy was the coolest. The first time on Hyperspace was the coolest.
Totally.
But after that first time is like, I'm not gonna wait in a longer line just for that,
Yeah. But I do like Hyperspace a lot. I think Hyperspace Mountain is really cool with just the way they did it, with the feeling like the
blasts.
The blasts are coming out of the vehicle. Yeah. That's super cool. Oh, one other thing not in here, but I wanted to talk about was the time I got to ride Space Mountain in the light.
Okay.
That was has that ever happened to you? Have you ever experienced that?
I have never ridden it in with the lights on, but I've what's the past tense of that word there? The
Roaded.
people mover.
Roaded is definitely
the people mover that we used to go around it with the windows with the lights on, which is almost cooler because you could see everything more slow and take it all in.
Yeah.
Well, and I've done that both in, I have a vivid memory of doing that in Anaheim and a vivid memory of doing that in Florida too, with the lights on. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what happened, but the ride stopped and then the lights turned on. And then I noticed that it's a gray building with a gray track with gray, like it's just all gray, the whole thing. But for whatever reason, they were taking some people off, but ours was the front vehicle in the loop. And they just pushed us through, and we still had, at the end when it kind of does the spin, and then you get into the thing. So they still had us go, but there was no centrifugal force going on. So an actual cast member came out and literally gave us a nudge.
Wow.
Like pushed us. And then we went it must have been 5 miles an hour, went through this thing, which actually
what
at that
cool
part,
experience.
It was cool. And in all honesty, that part of the ride, I always thought we were closer to the ground, but we were actually pretty high. And when you go slow, when you're at this angle, there's no force keeping you in. So it was actually kind of scarier. I mean, you have the lap bar on and stuff, but it was kind of like, oh man, I would fall out of this thing. And
That's
it's
crazy.
not like it's super high, but it's high. I mean,
High enough to get hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like 40 feet in the air or something, and it's just concrete down there. You're like, whoa, that's funny. But anyway,
You're 40 feet in the air?
I thought so. Maybe it was 30. I mean, it was
I had
definitely
no idea. I thought by the time at the bottom you were like at the ground. Like,
I mean,
like
look, memory, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I was 7 feet off the ground. I don't know, but in my head,
you had vertigo. You're like,
yeah,
whoa.
in my head, I thought we were tall. So it was fun to see it. I was by myself. It was just me on there.
That's cool.
And so it go not on, there's other people on the track. I did single rider.
Yeah.
So I was with, just a random person. And anyway, but then they fixed the problem very quickly because I don't know what the problem was, but we didn't even get off. They just said, do you want to ride again?
Oh,
Do you
cool.
want to stay on so you can go? And so we got to go on. So anyway, I'd like you to start with what your thought was on the last thing, because it might be the same thing.
No one enjoys an emotional moment more than me. And I am not afraid to say that I cry at anything. Like I cry in cartoon shows, I cry in commercials. I'm a man who's not afraid to be emotional. Having said that, I think they got too sappy at the end, and I think they got too emotional at the end of this episode. And for me to say that,
you went a complete different direction than I was going to go.
Well, I got one other thing. The one other thing might be the thing, but
no, you're right. You're right. Because they kind of were talking about like it being a rite of passage, which I thought that was cool. Because I agree
that's a
with
cool
that.
point.
The rite of passage is a cool point, but to their defense, I think they only got sappy and emotional because that guy was telling the story of him going with his dad, and he started to get emotional.
And I don't want to knock that. I don't want to knock that.
But then they just carried the music
cool.
on.
Yeah.
They just kept the music going and kind of rode that high of it. But I see what you're saying.
I don't blame that guy. I don't discount his story. Like, more power to you, bro. It was probably just, you're right. Like they could have edited it differently, or I don't know, but it got to the point where like I was in the moment, and then I was like, ooh, they lasted too long in that moment. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like I was like, all right, come on, go to the next. Like
I like the emotional story of him and his dad.
Oh,
Here is a non-emotional story with someone and their dad. And the reason why I was on that by myself, because my wife did not ride Space Mountain until like 4 years ago. And the reason why is because as a child, her dad wanted to go on it and she didn't want to go. And he said, you'll love it. It's just like Alice in Wonderland. Like just says like, oh, it's just a ride. Like, and she's like, Dad, we're getting it like a thing. Oh, it's just like a little thing. We go around and like you see like space and stuff like that. It's like, so he
put
just
put an age on this.
8, something like that.
Okay, keep going.
7 or 8 or something. And she just like, freaked out about, because of the expectation. And so she didn't do it forever. She does it now. She does it now and all that. It was literally, she did not ride a lot of roller coasters before having a child. And then after she had a child, she's like, I can go on that with you because I did that, so I could do this. And then she does it. She's like, why didn't I do these all those years? These are awesome. And I'm like,
because she was traumatized. That's why.
Right. And she had to go through going through labor, having a baby come out of her to say,
I got this.
I got this. And then loved it anyway.
That's funny. Is she going to get mad that you just told that story to the world?
Well, I hope not. I don't think so.
Tell her you love her, man. You're good. We're good.
Love you.
Because that's a fun story. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And it relates.
Okay. So my what I wanted to ask was what they were talking about at the end. Maybe this was the sappy moment, But the question that they asked was if you just had one ride, one last time. Now, I don't know why it's one last
this
time.
part bugged me. Yeah, this was part of that part that bugged me. I'm like, come on. It's cool, but like, it's not that cool. Like,
But if you had to answer the question, though, I don't know why. Like, what, are you dying or something? I'm not sure. But if you had one last time for any ride, what would it be?
hands down, Journey into Imagination. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah, but
that's a slam.
it doesn't exist.
People mover. All right, that doesn't exist either, right? Like, but if you're saying it has to exist currently and I'm about to die or something, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I might just be satisfied going and sitting on a bench
Yeah. I
until
like
the
sitting on
lights
benches.
turned on, and then being the last one to leave.
Yeah, which is very fun. When you're there at the very end,
Man,
it's
just
very
that
fun.
thought made me emotional. Like, just that thought right there. If I had some like terminal illness, you know, and I had one more time to go, I would just see sit on a bench and wait till it closed, and then I'd go home and die. Like that's pretty that's pretty deep, man. But
Yeah.
then I got to turn it back around. Do you have an answer for that?
Well, now that we put dying into it, I guess I'm dying in
I
some
don't know
way.
why else would it be one last
I
time.
know that I said that, but
Yeah.
so it's some way where you're gonna die, where you know you're dying, but yet you're still able to ride a
Yeah. What a weird hypothetical.
strange question. You're still gonna ride a roller coaster. I don't know. I mean, if I really love Indiana Jones. Indiana
Oh,
Jones is
interesting.
that's
Interesting.
always my wheel at the end of the night. Whenever I'm like, hey, one last thing, I'm always like, let's go to Indiana Jones. And so, I mean, if I have to answer my question based on my behavior almost every time I go, that would probably be it.
I do enjoy like at that time of the night when you're saying like one more thing, not like one more thing before I die, but one
Yeah,
more
yeah,
thing
just one more
before we
thing for the
leave.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's the question, it's the monorail.
Yeah.
I love riding the monorail at night when my legs are tired and you sit down and they're just tingling, and especially during a nighttime parade or like a holiday time, or even at the beginning of the fireworks when it's still going,
Yeah.
like that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Riding the monorail is awesome. What's in fun fact, you can go to the front of the monorail. You can go to you
I know.
showed me that how
I
you can
know.
go to the front of the monorail. You can't do that in Florida because it's transportation, and the one in Disneyland is an attraction. Even though I would argue that it is transportation because I use it for transportation all the time. Like I love exiting the park through the monorail and like using the monorail as my tram. So walking from the parking lot over to the monorail to get in, and then taking the monorail out and doing that. But it is just interesting that that's the reason why. Because I asked them in Florida, and they looked at me like they're like,
Like
"What?
crazy. Yeah.
No, you can't do that." Like,
That's funny. I never even made that connection before. That's an interesting connection. And let's not let ourselves trip into talking anymore about that because there's another episode.
you're right.
Um,
So we got to go on that. Was there another thing that you wanted to say at the end of this? Because I
just
obviously didn't say
just
the same thing.
just to quote that last great quote from Walt Disney. I think they played it twice, I think, or two or three times.
Yes.
Many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow. I thought that quote was worth repeating, and
Yes.
in such an optimistic sort of way, you know.
Yeah. I thought it was beautiful too. And I wrote it down. I said Walt's quote about the at the end, and I started trying to write it down. And then I thought, Chuck's going to write it down and he'll quote it. That was literally, I was like, I don't need to write. Chuck will write it down and he'll quote it.
Oh, see, teamwork, brother. Teamwork. I love it. I love it.
All right, man. Well, I think we covered it. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Which will be is it the castles one? Is the castles one next?
I don't remember.
If I wrote it down right, the castles one. If I wrote it down wrong, it's the Disneyland Hotel one, or Small World one, or trains, trams, and monorail one, or the Hall of the No, that's the last one.
I know those two are the last ones because for whatever reason, I decided to watch the last two.
Well, they're all intriguing, and it's hard when, they give them to us all at once. We can pick and choose, but we look forward to that. We look forward to more engagement with all of y'all below in the comments. Tell us what you're consuming. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you liked in these episodes. Tell us what else you're watching on Disney Plus. I got to go check out the new Star Wars anime show that just came out on Disney Plus. And check us out on the Instagram. Follow us over there. Jake keeps putting on good stuff there too. And don't ever forget, keep consuming and keep creating.